So in today's session, we are going to look at the introduction of two main areas of learning. And one of the issues or one of the items that we need to look at is the Oracle financials consultant. Then we shall look at supply. These are the two main areas of training that we will be going. In this class, I believe there is people who will be going forward with financials after we are done with introduction, and there are people who will going with the supply chain management functional skills course. So again, something else you should expect in this class is to understand who is among this. What does it mean to be a financial consultant? And also, what does it mean to be a supply chain management consultant? So with that, also we will be looking at you'll have an understanding of various business processes. So end-to-end of a business process, where it starts, where it ends. Also, you'll be able to have an understanding of setup, system setup. Again, you'll also be able to look at the in high level technical skills. Then you'll be able to have an introduction or an understanding of process of procure pay. So you have an understanding of order to cash. Both of these are cycles. Cannot be using. So that is the information that you need to get out of it at the end of this training. It is very much important for you to be keen. Ask a question where you find like you need clarity, and make sure that you don't proceed if you are not understanding exactly what we are doing. So with that, we are going to look at Oracle Financials Functional Consultant, and I would like to look at the terms. Look at the Oracle term. this, you can be asked, what is Oracle? Oracle is a company name. It's a corporate. And also, Oracle is one of the leading databases. So you may refer to Oracle as a company because that's the name of an organization that has or that owns this system that we are referring to, Oracle. And also, there's some way you can refer to Oracle as a database, right? When Oracle started as a database, before it even developed the applications that we'll come to see later. So the database was only for storing data, and the idea of application that will be used to store data was not in place by that time, around 1977. So what happens is that the leading database by then was Oracle, and it was embraced by people because it was so good in the market that it could not be ignored for its services. So it became a big name that was embraced for its services of storing data. So one of the way it's being referred as Oracle, you can find people understanding what is Oracle. They will say Oracle is a database. They know it as a database. There's some who doesn't even know Oracle as an application, because you might find the database is so good that it's being used by even other applications. So for the purpose of illustration, probably, shapes. So you'll find in such a database, there is storage of data inside these databases. Okay. And data is stored in form of tables, which are created or formed in the form of, or which contains rows and columns. In these tables, you'll find there is rows and columns that stores this data in the database. So basically, you may refer Oracle as a company and also as a database. So what does that try to say? So it's like there is some kind of functionalities that we expect, apart from just having the name of this company as Oracle. We also expect this company or this name of the company to have some more impact when it comes to the handling of data. So that's one way you can be able to refer Oracle as, or you can try to define Oracle. What is Oracle? So, but now Oracle has so many products. We call them family products, which will help in application when it comes to different needs, even in an organization. So for instance, in our case, we'll be looking at financials versus supply chain management. Okay. So in this case, meaning that financials and supply chain management, they are different, or they are in different, you can call them department or sectors or maybe segment when it comes to an organization. But you'll find in Oracle itself, it doesn't have only financials and SCM. It has other applications which all of them stores data in the Oracle databases. So it's a wide field that one may take so long to understand everything at on a small duration of time. But having started somewhere, for instance, the way you have chosen to start in financials or in supply chain, it will lead you to understanding other areas, because once you understand financials and then you understand how financials relate with supply chain, again you'll end up understanding how financials, supply chain relate with human resource application. The same way you will understand how financials relate with planning applications. So all these, we call them the family product of Oracle. So in our case, we'll be looking at financials and SCM for those who are pursuing the financials, and those who are pursuing SCM. Of course, they will have to look at what it entails. So when it comes to financials versus SCM, the reason why we call, or we are looking at this term, these two terms, Oracle Financials Functional Consultant, but we have break it down so that we can understand what does it mean. So when it comes to financials, the consultant that is referred to as Oracle Financials Functional Consultant is a consultant who understands the functionality of the finance module. When it comes to functionalities, it's like they can tell you which feature you need to use so that you can be able to achieve a certain goal. For instance, when it comes to booking an invoice, you cannot go and book an invoice in human resource management application, or ask a human resource consultant so that they can advise you about an invoice. But if you go and ask a financial functional consultant, they will help you to make you understand what feature and where it is. So when it comes to financials, we are dealing with, or we'll be talking on the data that relates to finances. So it's a consultant who can be able to advise from the business processes of booking a transaction until you get to relevant reports that comes from booking transactions through financial data. The same case applies to supply chain management. So when it comes to supply chain management, these involve data that revolves around procurement. So when it comes to procurement, there are different information which doesn't have to be maintained in finance, but purely will be maintained in supply chain management or in procurement department. So when it comes to the consultant who will focus to learn about supply chain management, it's all about the processes that involve procurement of goods and services in an organization. So that's why the term is coming in between. Okay. So again, when it comes to functional, we have several titles of resources that usually work in this area. And the moment we talk about functional, we are referring to operation of a system, or operations of a certain given feature in the system. So what happens is that you, as a functional consultant, you don't need, there are tasks that you don't need to do. And having mentioned that, there are other tasks or other titles I would like to introduce, but in a very high level, for you to understand the difference or the task that the functional consultant will not be doing, and probably the functions that they will be doing. For instance, when it comes to resources, okay, when it comes to resources, you will find in consultancy, there are people who, for instance, who deal with database. Before we start working, we have to involve someone we call a DBA. Okay. Even before we engage a DBA, we will have someone who is directing a DBA to do certain functionality. For instance, we need a project manager. Okay. We will need a project manager in each and every project. Then we will need a DBA who will do the work of setting up this database to a point that it is ready for it to accept data and also to give data when you are querying from the database. So again, we will also need someone we call the functional consultant. Okay, it's good you understand these terms, because sometimes you might find a functional consultant is being stressed by things that are supposed to be fixed by the DBA. So it's not good when learning to come and just introduce you to the task of functional consultant, and yet I will not tell you the work that the DBA or the technical or the project manager should be assisting you for you to be able to work conveniently. Again, the final resource that you might find in this area of operation is the technical consultant. So the work of the project manager is to manage the projects. And basically, with a good example, is to provide the resources that are available in a certain or are required in a certain project. Again, also providing good communication between the resources that are, or the people who are involved in the project, be it the key stakeholders of an organization, or be it resources like DBA, functional consultant, and technical, or even employee, call them users. Users. So what happens is that is basically high level, the work of the project manager. Then there is DBA who will be taking care of the database. Once the database has, or once you have agreed to do implementation, for instance, as a consultant, that there is an organization that needs to be implemented of a certain system, for instance, Oracle Financials, the DBA has to come and install the database before you, as a functional consultant, start working on it. So basically, in a very high level, the work of a DBA is to maintain and provide the database so that an application can start being utilized. Then there is the functional consultant. So as a functional consultant, one of the things that you need to understand is the functionality or the features that are in the systems that can help to achieve certain functionality. So one thing is to understand the system. Okay. As a functional consultant, you have to understand the system very well and be able to advise in case of something that is coming up. For instance, if you wanted to book, or a user wants to book an invoice, and it happens that these invoices cannot be booked, or maybe there is an issue with validation of that invoice or the approval of that invoice, a functional consultant, due to the understanding of the system, they are supposed to troubleshoot why is this invoice having this issue. And you'll find, with a good understanding of the system, it's very hard for you to go wrong or to take long without having gotten the issue or what is causing the issue. Then again, as a functional consultant, when it comes to, for instance, is a fresh application that is being installed, it is very much important for you to do the requirement gathering. This is understanding what the client wants. At the moment you understand what the client wants, you can be able, and now you understand what the system, how the system operates, you can be able to advise the client accordingly. Some of the clients you might find they are requesting for things that probably the system cannot handle. But with some understanding and your knowledge, you can come up with a workaround whereby you can be able to come up with a solution. It may not be exactly what the user wants or the client wants, but because you understand what is the system can be able to do versus the requirement that the client is asking for, you can be able to provide a workaround that will help this client to achieve their key goal in terms of the requirement. So again, also there is other now standard functionalities that you might find. For instance, a client may say that they want a system that whereby it can be able to create suppliers and create invoices, do payment of the invoices, connect with bank, so that once the moment you are doing the payment from the system, it can go straight to your bank, instruct your bank to do a certain payment to the supplier. So you might find such things are coming under the requirement gathering. So another important thing that a functional consultant does is the documentation. You have to document all the information that you are exchanging with the client. So documentation is very key. And this one now applies to when I talk about documentation, when I talk about understanding the system, requirement gathering, it applies to both whether you are a financial functional consultant or a supply chain, because in each and every area, you have to provide all these case scenarios. Okay. So documentation is very, very important, and it's one of the key thing or key item that a functional consultant will be doing in line of duty. Then again, there is training of users, training of new consultants. You might find if you are in a certain organization, you might need to train the junior consultants so that they can come. You can bring them up to speed and make them be able to tackle work as they are supposed to. Then there might be also the upcoming of new requirements. So you must be conversant with the moment you have a new requirement from the client. You can be able to train the client before even you even implement. You can be able to demonstrate and give a certain overview through a small bit of training, so that this client can maybe probably go ahead and accept the product. Again, once now you have implemented, you make sure that all users that are supposed to know or to understand the functionality of that feature are trained. Then another key work of a functional consultant is to do support. Support is whereby you are not implementing maybe a system, but you have a system that's already implemented, and now you are in a position whereby maybe you have been engaged to support that system in a way that the issues that are coming up or that has been experienced by users and making users work hard to or life hard to be working on that area, you can now look at them and be able to fix them. Because you might find when people are doing implementation, people who are introduced in implementation, and probably they don't have that so good knowledge on how to do things when it comes to implementation. So as a functional consultant, you take requirements you analyze them, and probably you provide a better solution. So that kind of engagement, we call it support. We call it support. So those are some of the key areas that you need to, you may find yourself involved in when it comes to this kind of consultancy. So basically that is that. Then we have the technical consultant. So what happened is that when the database was being created, it works, or all databases works or understand language we call SQL. SQL means structured query language. So SQL is a language that is used to manipulate data. You can use it to store data in the database, and also you can use it to pull data or to query data or to retrieve data from the database. So this is our database. So SQL, when it was being developed, it was developed in a way that it can be able to communicate to the database. We cannot be able to communicate to database with our natural language. So we'll need a smart connector, which will, it's like an interpreter who we will communicate to, and then they communicate to the database. And that interpreter, for lack of a better word, is the SQL language. So what happens is that SQL, in those early days, before we had something called applications, before we had the feature for applications, we used to work with SQL directly to the database. And the person who used to work with SQL direct to the database is the technical consultant. These are the people who will sit down, write queries. Queries are like an instruction that will communicate to the database. So that query, once it's written, it can be able now to give a certain instruction to the database. For instance, the technical consultant can write a query that will communicate to the database and tell them, store this invoice in this column, in this row, or even in this table. The SQL query will also tell the database, create this certain table in the database, in you, for lack of a better word. So you can use the SQL technology or feature to be able to create data. First of all, to be able to create tables, that is tables that will be used to store data. Then in those tables, you can create through the SQL certain columns. For instance, if you want a school table, okay, a school database, we call it database. A school database, you might find it has teachers, okay, it has students, it has lessons, it has things like what, school fee, okay, it has admission number, okay. So this information can be stored in a school database. So we can call maybe that school a certain name, and what we'll do, we will create this as the table. In the database, the SQL consultant will create this as a table, and this table will have these columns. Okay, it will have these columns which will be used to store each and every individual unique information in the database. So the person that works or used to do that was the technical person. It's not like they stopped. They have not stopped, because even right now, there are things you might find, or we don't do them from the front end application. And we have to work with the technical consultant and tell them, hey, I need this one to be uploaded from backend. So the moment they understand that you need it to be uploaded from backend, they know that you have to work with SQL and do the upload so that that data can stay in the database. So, or even you can tell them, I need a certain information. Can you pull for me all the invoices that have not been paid from maybe July, 1st of July to 5th of August. The technical consultant will use SQL, go backend, they write a query and pull all that information for the purpose of the request that you have given. So that's how the technical person comes in, or resource comes in. And also, when it comes to forms, for instance, now those early days, before the application came, take an application like any application you have in your phone. For instance, like WhatsApp application. In your WhatsApp application, you provide information and probably you click on save, or you amend, and or even you write a text message to someone, a chat. That information is being stored somewhere in a database that you can go back and query through the same WhatsApp application. But the same information can be accessed through the SQL language if need be, and can be pulled from the backend. But for the purpose of understanding the idea that I'm trying to bring home here, is that those early days, before, when the database was defined or was innovated, there were no applications. There were no applications, and the only information or how you could be able to store data is through SQL. But now, when there is a time that applications came, and whereby Oracle came with an idea of putting in or keying in data from front end without the use of SQL. And this happens whereby you can have given a good example of a WhatsApp application. So the moment you click providing certain information, and you click maybe save, or you click send, you'll find that information is a data that you have stored or you have sent somewhere. So before the application came, SQL used to be the key way of storing data in the database. Now, when the application came, those early days, SQL was using it is very complex. One thing you should know is that it is very complex, and it needs an expert who is a technical consultant. And also, it was time consuming, because writing a query, it's not something that you write as if you are writing what is easy to write, a poem. No, it's something that you have to write down and bring different commands, different instructions, until you achieve what you want to do with this SQL query. So it's one thing, one disadvantage, apart from being complex, it was time consuming. Then again, it was prone to errors. So you might find, when you are trying to write that query, you will get to find like you have made a lot of mistakes, and those mistakes continue consuming much time and also resources, because the moment you are keep on working on the same item, you'll find that there are some other things you could be probably focused on and be productive in them instead of consuming all the time here. So applications came to bring some one thing is to eliminate errors, that is human error, to reduce time consumption, and also to eliminate complexity that was involved in storing data through that one. Does it mean like we will not need the technical consultant simply because the applications came? So what happens is that you may find there are some scenarios that as a consultant, you have met a client who wants an adjustment, not only on the back end, how to store the data, but also in the front end on the features that they want to use so that data can be stored easily. For instance, when we talk about applications, you will find they have different fields. They have different fields whereby you can key in different information. For instance, you might find if it's an invoice, there is an invoice number. Okay. There is a supplier name. Okay. There is maybe supplier bank details. Okay. There could be invoice amount. Okay. So these fields will be shown in the application on front end. But now, assuming like probably there is a need in a client, or a certain client requires that the moment you are booking an invoice, you book the date of the invoice, date when the invoice was received. So you might find in a standard functionality, there is the invoice date field. But this invoice date, you might find you can choose any date. You can choose any date, and it refers to the date that you are creating the invoice in the system. But when it comes to the date when the invoice was received, you might find probably the client wants to do some kind of analysis on how long does the invoice stays in the finance department before it becomes completely paid or it's fully serviced. So you might find there is not this field of date when the invoice was received, but there is that field for invoice date, which is standard functionality, and you can book with that. So what happens is that through the technical consultant, they come up with the amendment of this application, how it looks on the front end. And they can be able now to introduce another field whereby you can be able to capture the information that is coming based on the interest of the client. So those are some of the areas that we can bring in the technical consultants. Okay. So that is that. Is there any question so far? Any question?
Nothing on my side.
So if there's no any question, I tend to believe you understand how these where we are heading to based on the based on the nature of this training. So what I want to bring in now, right now, is about two processes that we will be giving you a good foundation for those who are new. I know some of you want to just build a stronger foundation in this area. Some of you have been working with in this field, but for those who are new, I want to have an introduction to what will form basis that will make you more strong when you come to seeing the actual operations in the system. So we have a scenario whereby we have a customer, okay, and this customer probably they want let's say 10 laptops, okay, and in organization ABC group, okay, they sell laptops. So this customer will contact the sales department or salesperson. I'll call them sales department. Customer will contact the sales department, okay, because they need to buy or to purchase 10 laptops. So what happens? The sales department, their work is to sell. So they might not tell whether they have this laptop, but they need to check with inventory department. Okay. So the sales department will have to contact the inventory department, whereby they need to confirm whether the 10 laptops are available so that they can be able to sell to this customer. So what happens in the inventory department? In the inventory department, we usually maintain stock, okay, stock of items, okay, and also we do requisition, okay. So these are primary major. It's not like they are the only one, but these are the primary key things or key operations that happens in the inventory department. So they have to maintain stock so that if it's required in the organization, they can be able to provide. And also, if the stock goes beyond the standard level of probably ordering, they can be able to do requisition so that they can provide, or they can get the purchase process or procurement process triggered so that they can be able to purchase more. So what happens is that if this customer wants 10 laptops and sales department comes here and inquire in inventory department and find that there is 10 laptops, okay, the sales department will go ahead and book the sales order so that they can be able to start servicing it or processing it to sell to this customer. But in a scenario whereby the sales department or the inventory department, feels like or finds like the customer needs 10 laptops and they have been able to provide them. But in a scenario whereby the customer requires 100 laptops, okay, and once the sales department contacts the inventory department, they find they have 10 laptops. So what happens? What happens is that the inventory department will do a requisition of 90 or even more more laptops so that they can be able to sell these 100 demand. The 100 demand that is there for the already order that is coming from this customer. So the moment this happens, there is now the process of procuring which will be triggered. So what happens is that the inventory department will raise a requisition which will be shared to purchase department. Purchase department. So there is a requisition which will be shared to purchase department. So under purchase department, a few things that happens so that they can be able to get these 90 laptops or even more. What happens is that they have to request for quotation. We call it RFQ. RFQ is request for quotation. So the purchase department will contact suppliers and tell them, hey, we are interested in purchasing these laptops from your organization, and we'd like you to quote and give us details on what are the terms for us to purchase from you. So after that, they'll send a request for quotation, and this request for quotation will be specifying the information regarding the laptops or any other item that is need to be purchased. Once the request for quotation has been received by the supplier will share the quote. Or maybe you say receive the quote. So the supplier will share details of the laptops or any other thing. Let's continue using the laptops as our example, and make sure that different details or terms and conditions have been communicated through the quote. That is, could be the number of amount of the minimum order. It could be a discount. If you pay after a certain period of time, you will receive this discount. Quality may be also mentioned in that quote, and so many things based on the nature of the transaction. So once the supplier shares the quote, there will be something we call quote analysis. Quote analysis, which has to be done so that you can settle with the best supplier or the best quote that has good and favorable terms for you to be able to purchase from them. Once you have done the quote analysis, you will raise something we call purchase order. So a purchase order is a document that, it's a legal document that authorizes a supplier to share or to supply goods in your organization. So this purchase order, it will be shared or it will be sent to the supplier that has best terms based on the quote analysis that has been done. Then after this has been achieved, before you share the purchase order, we call it PO. In Kenya, you might find it being referred to as LPO, local purchase order. So it means the same. So this document, because it's legal, has to be approved or maybe signed. Once it has been signed, it will be shared to it will be sent to the supplier. Once the supplier has received the purchase order, they will look at it and deliver the goods that has been ordered through the purchase order. So what happens is the purchase department, either the purchase department under through the inventory will receive the goods that are coming from the supplier. And once they receive it, there is a document that we usually create, which we call good receipt note. Okay, we call it GRN. Maybe I can write it in full. Good receipt note. So this is a document to confirm that you have received the goods that you had requested or you had ordered through the purchase order. This is an issue, is a document that you will issue to the supplier. So something else that may happen under the purchase department, it's return of goods purchased. You might find maybe the goods are not in good terms or have not been maintained the set standards when you were ordering them. So once you have been able to receive these goods, you might find you may need, or you might find some are in excess. Maybe they have supplied more than what you had ordered in the purchase order. So there might be goods returns, or we call them purchase returns. Purchase returns. So these are goods you are sending back to the supplier, telling them that maybe probably you don't need them, or maybe they are not in the good condition as you had agreed. Okay. So the moment you will receive the purchase order, you receive the goods, it means now the supplier can as well invoice you for the purpose of you now to pay the goods that you have received. So when it comes to invoicing, we have a department called payables department. And the primary goal for this department is to maintain supplier invoices, okay, and also do the payments. This one you can call it supplier or purchase invoices. Okay. So the communication will be done to a point that the moment goods has been received, there will be also a communication to this department we are referring to as payables department. Okay. So this communication has to be done so that the payables department may start preparing the invoices of that supplier who has supplied goods and they have been received, and also do the process of payment so that they can be able to pay that invoice. So primarily you should understand this. These are the primary functions that are being done in this department of payables. Again, there is also another department that is involved, which we call cash management. Okay. This department, under cash management, there will be also communication between payables and cash management. This is because the moment there is payment or payment of a supplier, there must be cash moving from the bank of an organization. So what happens is under cash management department, let me call it the cash department, there will be primary goal, there will be bank account maintenance, and there is something we call bank statement reconciliation. Okay, so these are the primary goals that has to be, or what happens in the cash department, whereby you have to have a bank account where money is being stored, either where money is coming in and going out when you are paying and when you are receiving. And also you have to do bank statement reconciliation to understand the balances that are in your books, the balances that you have in your bank. So these are very key departments which has to be communicated, because you might find there are suppliers who have been, maybe payment has been issued and maybe probably they have not been cleared simply because of one reason or the other. And now that's where the bank reconciliation comes in, so that you can be able to do bank recon and be able to tell this payment is pending where, or it's hanging somewhere or in a specific point. So again, in this process, you might find another department we usually work with is asset department, whereby we sometimes find ourselves in a position whereby we are capitalizing an expense. When we talk about capitalizing an expense, is that yes, we have a supplier who have supplied a certain good. For instance, maybe let's say it's a motor vehicle. So you'll find that motor vehicle we need to maintain it as an asset. So even though the process will be the same in the nature of procuring until you receive that vehicle, and also you communicate that you have received the vehicle to the payable department. You need also to communicate that it's not just a payment you are just making or an expense you are making. You need to communicate to the asset department that they need to maintain or to capitalize this expense as an asset. So what happens is that the moment you are purchasing, or we are purchasing an asset, the payable department has to communicate with the asset department, which will do asset maintenance, or they maintain asset, primarily, and also they do asset depreciation. So this information has to be tracked. Yes, we purchased, we did a payment. What were we paying for? Maybe it's an asset. And was that asset maintained in the asset book? Yes or no? The best practice you'll find is it should be maintained. The information that is here, for instance, if the cost of an asset that was paid to the supplier through payables department, the same information you should be able to track it in the asset department and show that this asset was purchased maybe a certain day, and this was the supplier, this was the initial cost before it started depreciation, and all that. But you might find in so many areas, like for instance, without mentioning some of organizations we are working for here in our country, you might find this is the time they are starting doing the right process of tracking asset through payables, or maintaining asset through payables. Let me shift a bit. You can maintain asset directly in the asset department, but that's not the best practice. The best practice is whereby you are maintaining asset from the point of purchase. That is, maybe you requested for quotation of maybe a certain vehicle or a certain furniture, and then the process of quote was done. You issued purchase order. You raised a purchase order. It got approved. You issued to the supplier. The supplier delivered goods, and you process the payment, and now you track the asset. But now you might find in most scenarios or in most organizations, some of them you might find they probably they don't know the best practice, or they don't seems to be knowing the need for maintaining the asset through the payables department. And when it comes to audit, they end up to have to explain some of audit queries that and that is that. So it is good to maintain best practice, whereby you can be able to share that information through the asset department, and the tracking of that asset now can start. So once all this has been done, we usually have a common department. So under common department, here, after all these processes have been done, what happens is that here we usually maintain financial reports. Okay. So all these processes, all this information, there is each and every department, there is an information it holds. For instance, if it's sales, there is a number of sales that has been made. It has to report to the common department. Then if it's something like inventory, you have to report inventory. Remember, inventory is one of the B-sheet item for those who are coming from finance or accounting area. Then there is purchase. You might find you need to understand what items have we purchased, and also what item have we been able, or which supplier have we been able to pay, and also what asset do we have in our books, and also what cash balances do we have in our banks. So basically, that is one of the best practice on how a procuring of an item should be done when it comes to the best practice. Is there any question? Everything is clear?
I was having a question.
Yes.
Okay, the main, we started from the customer's order, and we went through the purchase process. Now, after purchasing the ones that we didn't have, that's the 90 or more, can we now go ahead and sell to the customer who ordered for the 100 laptops?
Yeah, that's a very good point. But what I want to tell you is that I want to handle them differently. The customer, here I was demonstrating the customer so that we can see how we can trigger the process of procuring.
Okay.
But I will show you how we can, how the same customer or a customer can still trigger the process of selling.
It's okay.
So this one, we usually call it procure to pay cycle. In short, P2P. This is procure to pay cycle. So we'll look order to cash. The moment the customer orders until we receive that cash in our cash department or in our banks. So allow me to do some few diagrams here. Just for the purpose of illustrating what we have been discussing. So this is our inventory department, okay, whereby we have said we usually maintain stock and we do liquidation, stock liquidation. Okay. Then we have the purchase department. Then we have the payables department. Then we have cash department. Here we can have assets. Here we can have common. So what happens is that this information has a flow. Okay. Okay. So under the purchase department, we have said we do RFQs. Okay. After we receive, we do RFQs, we receive quote. After we receive quote, we do quote analysis. After doing quote analysis, we raise a PO, that is purchase order. Raising a purchase order, it needs to be approved because it's a legal document. Then after approval, we issue it to the customer, supplier, sorry, and then the supplier will deliver goods. Once they deliver goods, we receive goods through a goods receipt. Call it into bracket G. And something else that we can do under the moment we have received goods, we can do purchase returns. Okay. Then again, what we can do in another department under cash, what we usually do under cash is we maintain bank accounts. Okay. Then we do bank statement reconciliation. Okay. Then we have payables department, whereby we usually maintain supplier invoices. Okay. And also we do the payments. Then we have the asset department, whereby we maintain assets. When talk of assets is fixed asset, and also we do calculate asset depreciation. Then we have the common department, whereby we do financial report. We generate financial reports. So I'm trying to bring this kind of flowchart so that we can see where we'll be going and how things will be moving. And the moment that you'll be now getting into the system, like telling you like now we need to create a payable invoice, that is a supplier who has already, we'll be assuming that a supplier probably has delivered goods and they need to be paid because they have issued an invoice. So this flow or this workflow is very important, because if the moment you understand it very well, even now in the system, you'll be able to tell, like, we are coming from this end, we are heading to this end. Like for instance, if we do a payment of an invoice, you'll find that information, you can get it from the payables department, and also you can be able to get it from the common department. If you do a payment that is through cash department, when funds move from the cash department, there will be that report. You can be able to get it from the common department, and you can be able to drill it down. That's why I have two arrows, end to end. You can be able to drill it down from the common department, and you go up to where that transaction originated. The same case applies to asset department. So in our case today, when it comes to the application, now we shift. We will not be talking about the department. We'll be talking about the application. In the application nature of it, we have an application that we call Oracle Inventory. That is for inventory. And in short, we abbreviate it as INV. Okay, that's the application we will be working with. Under purchasing, under purchasing department, We have an application called Oracle Purchasing. And it's abbreviated as PO. So PO, you get this clear, it can be referring to the purchasing application, and also PO can be referring to purchase order. So it's good to know where you'll be using it. Okay. So that is that. Then under payables department, we have Oracle accounts payable, abbreviated as AP. So if you hear someone mentioning AP in finance, just get to know that's the payable application, payable department. Then we have cash management or cash department, whereby we have an application by the name Oracle Cash Management. We abbreviate it as CE or even CM, but in most cases it's good to use CE because the table in the database for cash management is abbreviated or is used with CE because we also have contract management. So for avoiding the confusion between the two CM, contract management and cash management, Oracle came up with the idea of naming the tables different. And now the table for cash management is CE in the database and not CM. And you will find when you start working with different documents, you'll find it's being referred to as CE. CE is referring to cash management. I hope that one is clear. Then we have asset department. And under asset department, we have Oracle fixed asset, abbreviated as FA. Okay. Then we have common department. Under common department, we have general ledger. Oracle general ledger, sorry, abbreviated as GL. So when you're working with finance, you will be using these abbreviations of AP, FA, PO, inventory, all that. But in tomorrow's session, we'll be seeing how now they separate, which are exactly the areas of finance, which exactly are areas of SCM. So, is there any question?
None from me.
And for the other members, if there's no question, I think we're almost 1 hour, 30 minutes. We'll pick up from there tomorrow so that we can be able to see the order to cash. Then we combine the two flow. Then we separate which are for AP, finance, and others, and which are for the SCM. Well, so we'll continue engaging. If you don't get or you find you have some kind of clarity, you can inbox me. I can try to find time in my busy schedule and try to bring you up to speed. Also, I'll be sharing these recordings so that you can go through them. And the moment you listen, you can be able to practice what we'll be saying. So thank you very much. Bye-bye and have a good night.